We will go ahead with our introductions. First up, is Dr. Kelly Kirksey Augustine. Kelly, go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, I received my doctorate in counselor education and psychology at Ohio State in 2001, right before the Twin Towers were attacked. So it kind of went out like a little whisper, and I went on to become a tenured professor at Malone University in Canton. Primarily my work is as a holistic psychotherapist. I've done that pretty much all my life, most recently at Cleveland Clinic for almost the last 10 years. We parted ways at the end of January. So now I am a solo practitioner and a consultant in health and wellness, holistic modalities for healing and teaching. So now my whole world, like many people, is virtual. My practice is fully virtual, except taking people out in the park to beat the drum and hug trees and dance under the stars. But I'm enjoying life in the virtual world. And I have 3 kids.
All right. Well, thank you, Kelly, and I do appreciate your time and joining in this conversation with us.
Thanks for the invitation.
No doubt. And I'm going to hold Joanna in case she's able to log in with us because I made the change. So we're going to go to Michael Lewis Farmer. Michael, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Good evening, my sisters. I guess primarily I would say that I am an educator, although I was never on the teaching track. I did earn my master's in education from Kent State University. I hold a Master of Arts in Black Studies from The Ohio State University. So, and I've always been an educator and a public servant of some sort, whether working for the Boy Scouts of America, the VA, YMCA, being a teacher. Yes, and it's very important how those in the caring field, as all you ladies are so mistreated when we're just there to help others and to share with others.
All right, well, thank you, Michael. And I'm looking forward to your contributions to the conversation as well. So I'm so looking forward to this. Next up at bat, we have Dr. Rose, all the way from the 614. Hello, Dr. Rose.
Hi, my sisters. How are you? And certainly Monique. I do often refer to you as Mo. So if I slip with that tonight, please forgive me.
These people who are on this virtual gathering have known me for quite a while, so they all have the freedom to call me Mo whenever they want to.
Okay, very good.
It's you.
So I bring to the table 42 years in government, either at the local, state, or county level. I'm also a mom of one child who's deceased. She was 30 and died in a car accident. So I do have a perspective because I had to deal with the judicial system following that situation. I'm also married, been married for 42 years, and a licensed social worker. So I obtained my social work background from Catholic University here in Columbus, Ohio. Went on to get my master's from Central Michigan in administration, and decided toward like 7 years out before my retirement in 2010, decided to get my doctorate. So I received my doctorate in public policy and administration from Walden University in 2010. And since that time, as I mentioned, I had retired in 2009 and then re-entered government in 2015, where I continue today in a directorship role in senior government. So I kind of bring a very unique perspective to the conversation, both from a personal and professional background. And I would say born and raised in Columbus, Ohio, to a family of 7 with a stay-at-home mom and a father that was in business, and have some very unique experiences just living up in a household like that, you know, with a father being the sole breadwinner for 7 children and his wife. So have a very unique perspective, you know, growing up inner city and with those kind of shared experiences. So thank you for inviting me, and I look forward to the conversation with my sisters as well.
Thank you so much, Dr. Rose. Thank you very much. And I'm gonna, Olivia, if you can reach out to Joanna, see if she's having any problems logging in so we can get her in as well. All right. So, so just briefly, just an opening statement, which will pretty much recapture what I've already shared. So we're living in a very powerful time, and racism is, there's nothing new under the sun, but there's something different about this climate for me. And so, and it is powerful. And we are facing all kinds of isms, challenging what we have accepted, what people perceive to be norms, and demanding that we have our liberties and our justice. And I have invited you all here to join me in this virtual talk to discuss from your personal experience with racism, even gender-related bias and classism. And then we will conclude as we wrap this up. And as you know, we're talking, just take a moment to think, if you had to speak to your younger self, or if you have a word to impart to this younger generation, or even your neighbors and friends, what would it be about combating the isms and being mindful of how we even approach other people? Because that the one thing that I personally have not spent much time dwelling on until this time and until this class was gender-related racism, because I always felt like my Blackness, if I was offended by an ism, it would be my Blackness first. And then over the years, I realized that I've had encounters with Black people who had some isms, who had some classes behavior toward me, and even men, Black men who express doubts in my capability, and because I am a female and I had a place that I needed to be in. So it's really causing me to think a lot, and I wanted to hear what some other knowledgeable and very educated and humble folks had to say. Okay, so we just want to, and just as a group, nobody's getting any points or scoring on this, but I just want to know, since we're talking about race, gender, and class, racial discrimination, anybody with just a general definition?
Go ahead, my sister.
Oh, it's going to be really brief and to the point. I think racism, especially here in America, it is point blank, black and white, or shall I say white and melanated. Yeah. If you are of color, you're going to have issues in America. You can be the best person, but it's the color of your skin, and it almost invalidates everything you do and everything that you are. It's very offensive, and it's everywhere. It's in some churches. It's on the job. It's being a student. It's being a faculty person. We don't escape it. Oftentimes the sisters say, "Oh, child, I'm tired." We ought to be tired, because everywhere we go, there's somebody who wants to challenge us just because we've been kissed by the sun.
All right. Amen.
Wow.
Kissed by the sun. That sounds like a novel, Michael. Get to work.
Oh,
Yes.
I'm gonna go ahead and jump in.
Dr.
I want to say that with racism, it's one of the ugliest isms that there is in society, and that where we are today is probably one of the ugliest times in history that we've had to visit during this season of our lives. I'm 62 years old, and I certainly remember the 60s, with the riots and the death of Dr. Martin Luther King and what happened during that time. But in this decade, it seems to be one of the ugliest because people tend to be very overt with their isms and with their racism. And the isms is a painful reality for us, people of color. And it's not just limited to African Americans, but it's certainly our Latina brothers and sisters and other ethnicities of color. They are under attack. We are under attack just because we have been kissed by the sun. And I would say because of the isms, that we have to be uniquely skilled and uniquely postured in how we handle such isms if we're out in the public or if we're out in the professional arena, in terms of how do you act, because these isms are around us, and some are overt and some are covert and some are subtle and some are just, you have to know what the cues are, and know about that unspoken language. So I would say with the isms that we're at a all-time, I would say, low here in America as to how many people, and I'm going to even say even amongst our own race, how we treat ourselves, because we can victimize ourselves with our own isms versus bringing each other up and raising each other up. So a very difficult subject, hard to define, but you know what it is, and you know how it makes you feel.
Yes. Yeah.
And I certainly appreciate the dialogue on tonight. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody want to address gender? What
Well,
that means? Oh, I'm sorry, Kelly. Go right ahead.
No, I'm going to be very simple with my definition of race discrimination, and that is systematic disenfranchisement due to the color of our skin. So, and as everybody else said, all things large and small. Going to the CVS to buy some sunscreen, and that sunscreen turns gray because it was not formulated for brown skin. That's race discrimination. We were disenfranchised from being able to, have some sunscreen that enhances our natural color. So there's just a full spectrum.
Wow. That is, and I definitely want to put like a post-it right there on your comment about systematic racism. So as we journey on in this conversation, I would like to come back, and particularly maybe you can come back to you since you brought it up, to kind of further journey down that that road with that conversation. Anybody want to tackle, just give us a general definition of gender discrimination?
Hi, Monique. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, Joe.
I am so sorry to join this conversation late.
Okay.
I hope it's not over.
Well, since you came in, go right ahead and introduce yourself. We all did. The guests all introduced themselves, so go right ahead and introduce yourself.
Hello, my name is Joanna Buchanan. I am a registered nurse working for the VA Medical Center in our homeless domiciliary population. I've known Monique for many years, and I am honored to be part of the panel. I have to apologize. My couple of nurses called off, and I got sucked in. So I appreciate your time and thank you for letting me join late.
Oh, thanks, Joanna. And we appreciate having you on the call. Okay.
I'm going to jump in on the conversation about gender.
Okay.
I want to say that I am proud to be a Black woman.
All right.
I don't make any excuses about it. I am what I am. I've learned in my professional journey and personal walk that it is important that we value who we are, what we look like, my nose, my lips, you know, my hair, whether it's purchased or if it's natural. I learned that being a woman is a very important role in society, and being a Black woman.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's important that we are treated with respect. All women should be treated with respect. And a real recent example of gender racism was the woman from Congress who was belittled by the congressman out of Florida.
Mm-hmm.
And when he called her a F&B, it's like, who asked for that?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and why did it have to go that low?
Mm-hmm.
But that is just one classic example of gender racism that is just the lowest of low. And as the Congresswoman so eloquently stated, is that we have a culture where disrespecting women is just permissive in society. And that's what our reality is now. And I believe that women have been discriminated against for years and years. But when you can be that overt to disrespect a woman, someone's mother, someone's daughter, someone's wife, to go that low was just totally unacceptable. And I believe, I don't know my fellow sisters that are on the line here, and I'm getting to know my sisters here, and we're all one. But I believe in our life's journey that we've probably all have experienced discrimination as a woman, particularly as a Black woman and a woman of color. And I know we're not talking ageism, but you for someone like me, you put a Black woman that got a little age on them, then I think you're at even a higher risk of being discriminated against.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for adding that in, for adding that in, because age is another issue that that we need to look at. So thank you for adding that in.
Thank you.
Anybody want to tackle class real quick, and then we can move on to the meat of this conversation.
Pardon me. If you don't mind, I wanted to add discrimination against those with disabilities.
Ooh,
especially disabilities that everybody can't see.
Right.
Yes.
And they make foul assumptions about you.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And that is you know, with that I think that's an upcoming, because we've been tossing that conversation around a lot. And I think as I've been looking at some of the coursework and signing up for upcoming classes, those issues are being talked about in some of the coursework. And so absolutely, because you don't, and yes, and I will share this. I don't want to spend time on me, but I was diagnosed with diabetes back in, I want to say like maybe 2007. And I was at work one day and I was trying to learn how to manage this blood sugar thing. And it's very difficult in the beginning because you have to adopt a whole new lifestyle. So you have to eat regularly. And I was working in an environment that didn't afford me the time to self-care because we were moving. And something hit me and I started to I felt myself glazing over, and I was praying. I'm like, Lord, I said, don't let me fall out, because I fear if I fall out, I'm not getting back up. And at that particular time, 2 white coworkers were actually coming down the way. One made fun of me. He said, you look drunk. You been drinking? And the other one instantly knew. He started talking to me. He says, Monique, and he wanted just checking me out. He says, do you need something to eat? Are you okay? And he went and got something for me. So one person in his ignorance,
Ignorance.
and wasting time being ignorant at that, it could have been life threatening. So now you've wasted time just displaying your full blown ignorance. But another person who God sent him right on through, because he was able to get me back together because he recognized what was happening to me physically. So, people may not know what you're going through because we don't share all of that. But, I thank God for people, who have a sensitivity to people who have certain unseen crises. So yes, Michael, that's a good one.
That's excellent.
Mm-hmm. And class discrimination, and then we're going to move into our the rest of our conversation. Anybody want to discuss class?
I would like to chime in on class.
Okay.
From a different point of view. A lot of times we believe that class discrimination is more economical, socio-economical, when it goes into a caste system. The lower class versus the middle class versus the higher class versus the disenfranchised poor. But it's also in the business world. It's also in professional world that recently I'm an RN and I work with a lot of LPNs and I teach STNAs, state tested nursing assistants. And then there's the advanced practice nurses, the nurse practitioners, there's the doctorate of nurses. So there's all these different classes within the nursing profession. And it's very strange at times when one holds himself higher than the other. It's very true. You went to school, you got more education, you might make more money, but it doesn't make you, and dare I say, smarter. Okay? It doesn't make you smarter. It just makes you more fluent and it gives you authority, true, but you should not hold someone's level against them and judge them for being lesser. And it bothers me. I mean, there's legal things that we have to consider when it comes to different professions and degrees and things like that. But also, it's not. Everyone has an opinion. Everyone has a goal and everything else. But so it just popped into my head. I hope I made sense.
You did.
But
Absolutely.
I relate to that. Can I chime in on that
Please,
one?
Kelly, go ahead.
That's excellent. Yeah.
So class discrimination, being disenfranchised because of whatever your level is in society, whatever your socioeconomic level, educational level. And Joanna, I love that you kind of wrap that in because it's so important, because there's so many different ways that we can categorize people so that you can have this, let me rise above you and look down on you because you don't have those letters behind your name. I had a work situation where I was going from being a contract worker, to being converted to an employee. And they told me, well, we can give you $25 an hour. And I said, well, I'm going to go hang some drywall and make 3-4 times more than that an hour. And then the person said to me, well, you're a social worker and social workers just don't make a lot of money. I said, well, for one, I'm not a social worker, but social workers make good money in the right places where their work is respected and valued.
Go ahead now.
Now, Dr. Kelly, I thought you were going to take it from the perspective in academia, how we're disrespected for the degrees that we do hold. And this is no disrespect for those that have not attained a doctorate. But I recall 2 incidents, one even prior to my doctorate, as a social worker in one of my prior jobs, I was so proud of the fact that I had gotten my master's at that point. Very proud of that fact. And I went to my boss and I asked my boss, I said, now that I have my master's, will there be any consideration to compensate me for that? I wasn't asking for much, maybe a quarter on the hour. Okay, nothing much. And so that particular supervisor said to me, well, you don't have any more than what we have. So congratulations, but no, I'm not going to recommend you for any earnings, increased earnings. And that just kind of disturbed me. And then as I advanced in this same job, as I endeavored to get my doctorate, some ignorant training administrator said, well, in social work, you don't need to have a doctorate. And I wasn't even asking for a doctorate in social work. I was getting my doctorate in administration just to be a broader based practitioner.
Mm-hmm.
And said that we don't need no one. And at this point, they were offering 100% tuition reimbursement. But in my first year, they made the decision that because I was pursuing a doctorate, unlike anyone else in the agency, that they would cancel that policy and practice of tuition reimbursement and say that if you're pursuing your doctorate, it's on your own.
Wow.
And then a third example is in the workplace, that since I'm not working in academia, when my employers hired me, they obviously had to have me prove that I had this piece of paper, and the transcript wasn't enough. So, I went through all the necessary steps to prove that I had a doctorate. But even with that, I could tell right from the very beginning that there was a degree of discomfort. So I purposely did not want to have them identify my name, with those kind of letters with it. I said, just call me Rose. And one of my employees said on day one, do I call you doctor or do I call you this? Do I bow down to you? No. Just call me Rose, because I know that there is a degree of discomfort. And it relates to classism because, if women of color have reached a certain pinnacle in life and to have a doctorate, you're 1% of the population anyway, you're just treated a little differently. And even in the church, I had to say to them, and I don't want to belabor this, but I had to say to the church once I got my degree and they were applauding the graduates that year, I said, just because I have this piece of paper, don't get it twisted, I'm still Rose, okay? Because when I go to Kroger's, I don't have to identify myself as Dr. So-and-so at the checkout line. All they want to know is, do I have some money to make this purchase? All right. So, we put ourselves in certain classes and we devalue, particularly for African Americans in academia, we devalue ourselves when we don't stand to the rigor of academics to say that we have this degree and treat me accordingly.
Yeah. So
I think
I'll
Kelly chimed in first and then Michael. Go ahead.
Okay.
Mike, you go ahead and go. No, I'll just say this one point. I've never met a white woman with a doctorate that says, oh, no, just, I'm just Betty Sue. Yeah, don't call me Dr. Betty Sue. Just I've never met one white woman.
And that's a statement.
You know what I'm saying? And so I'm still paying my student loans for that hard-earned degree.
Absolutely.
So
Yes.
I don't apologize if people feel uncomfortable with my education. Then that's a personal issue that they can take up with their own therapist. That's not about me at all. That's their business.
Amen.
And you two mentioned discomfort, they're being uncomfortable. And I don't think it's so much that you all have earned your doctorates. They know you had to persevere.
Mhm.
That's right. That's
Okay.
right.
It was about perseverance. You're
That's-
intelligent,
Mhm.
but you all had to have that second win, the third win, because of all the hoops they make you jump through. And you notice those that are paler than you are, they're chilling in the teacher's study,
Mhm.
and you're doing everything.
Mhm.
You know, I have a question because, not a question, but a comment. I work with a lot of doctors in a hospital, not in academia, but
Physicians.
Mhm.
in a hospital setting, physicians, but also work with psychologists, social workers, nurses with all doctorate degrees. And they will, and you can see it. So classism in that arena has a twofold, a two-edged sword. One way they slice you is, I have a doctorate and you need to respect it. Call me doctor. I am the doctor. I mean, that statement, I am, it's like, we know you're the doctor. So why do you have to keep repeating that you're a doctor? We got that. But the other part is racism. So you will see a lot of our fair complected Caucasian, I'm not sure exactly what to say, but you will see them say, I am a doctor, and you will treat me as a doctor. And you're looking at them like, you don't know who you are. It's on your jacket that you're a doctor. So I'm fine with that. But they will browbeat you with it to the point of being discomfort, of being, it's just a different way of just holding it up and hitting you on the head with it.
Mhm.
So then when other people do get their doctorate and they say, oh, you don't have to call me a doctor, or yes, that's very nice for you to call me one. You don't know how to take it because there's so many few percentage of us that have our doctorate,
Mhm.
and you're not joining the club, but you're now place people that have with, not only am I so-called above you because of my race, because of my gender, because of my finances.
And
But
Joanna,
now
your
I'm
audio is
also
kind of coming in and out.
above you because of, and they wrap it all in one package. And hold on, let me try to thank you. You go on and keep talking.
Okay. All right. So I just posted an excerpt from and you guys are, I didn't even share this with you all, but you're right on point. There have been materials that I've been reading for this class, and there is a professor from the University of Georgia. Her name is Dr. Juanita Johnson Bailey, and I am just like a new fan. She shares her experience for one. So she brings this research and all the data, and she makes it like really plain and simple, and really pulls you into the body of work that she's sharing. And she kind of reminds me of like the academic version of TD Jakes, kind of taking that word and breaking it down, making it understandable. And she co-authored a piece in the Harvard Review Journal with a gentleman who was at one time her professor, as she journeyed on to get that PhD. And then he ultimately became a colleague. They became colleagues. But she talked about her journey. She talked about white students demanded a copy of her CV to see if she was even qualified to teach them. She said she even had to deal with Black students who saw her and they felt comfortable with her and comment with her and would approach her like, hey girl, what you doing? You know, in the middle of, you know, like class and other students. So she was like, no, I'm not hey girl. You know, I am your professor, you know, just to keep things fair and balanced. But there was a piece she had written in this in the Harvard Review with Dr. Severo, her colleague and former professor. And she talks about, this is a piece about sharing. And she's excited, just like you, when you go back to school, you're excited because you made that move and you're like, Lord, do this thing because I want to go and I want to go further. So Dr. Johnson Bailey says, the first time I confided in someone that I wanted to be a professor, she said, I was a first quarter doctoral student. My revelation was greeted by the laughter of a white male professor, and his response was, well, Juanita, you're aiming mighty high. So she goes on to say, so I held my plans close. It would be 2 years before I shared the secret again. And to me, that was like devastating from somebody that should be, you know, feeding you. But it even caused her to delay. She might have missed an opportunity, I'm thinking, to share with somebody who could have actually helped her or motivated her. But she was so wounded, it was 2 years before she opened her mouth to speak what she desired. And she goes on to share other accounts. But there is, in the writing that she and Dr. Severo did for this review, and as she talked about her journey and he talked about his, and he said he never experienced any of the things that Dr. Johnson Bailey did. Actually the title of the section where his story picks up is called Smooth Sailing. And they both, this white man identified and said, yes, that this existed. And, you know, and her story is not uncommon, but he says that it was, that his situation was smooth sailing. It was effortless because people were behind him, supporting him, because this is the direction you would want to go. And I think it's odd that, as you know, as a first quarter doctoral student, that you will want to speak that kind of life into a student. But to tell why else are you working on your doctorate in education if you don't have a goal to become a professor? And for him to shoot her down and say, you know, you're aiming a bit too high. And, you know, and as she shared this, I appreciated it because as a woman of a certain age and a woman of a certain shade, I had gotten into, and even while I worked at the Ohio Department of Health, and I will say it, but there were things that I experienced that, you know, I'm like, I don't want to, you know, you don't want to rattle cages. You don't want, because is it just me? You know, Monique, you always spotting racism, because racism, and I am so glad that people are sharing their stories because it is there and we don't have to, you know, suffer in silos. And I think that's, I know in some instances I had suffered in my own personal little silo in dealing with the isms. So we're going to go to the next.
Let me just interject here, Monique. And I don't think this is unique to all of us as women, is that we all have dreams. Mm-hmm. And we have aspirations for higher opportunities, whether it's personal, professional, or in your home or in your community or elsewhere. Mm-hmm. But I have found that there are dream killers.
Oh, yes.
There are dream killers, and you sometimes are forced, like that professor mm-hmm. who had her dreams. Mm-hmm. You're forced to hold that inside and not share because you're afraid. Mm-hmm. Or you may have an encounter, as she did, that could really block you emotionally. Mm-hmm. So to protect yourself from that type of rejection or bad experience, you just don't share. But I think that the importance for us as women is that we have to be free and comfortable in sharing our dreams, mm-hmm. but it has to be with the right audience and the right person, because not everyone is going to support your climb or your efforts, or even share pearls of wisdom and knowledge to help you survive the wickedness of the climb, you know. And, you know, some people talk about that glass ceiling. Well, I'm not trying to get up to that glass ceiling. I'm just trying to shake it and break it, you know. But not everybody's able to share those stories and share your journey with you, or willing to coach or mentor you through the process. I'm proud of the fact that my dissertation chair, he's one of my friends, even 10 years later. He's a minister, African American, and he guided me through that process. We're on LinkedIn together, we're on Facebook together, always professional. And but it's always been about encouragement. And go forward, my daughter, is what he would say. You can do it. You can finish this cross line here. And you need that push. And so we need people in our circles that is willing to help us go through the process. We talked about perseverance and hard work. That's in every element of life. We need someone that's willing to share. I don't find too many people willing to do that kind of mentoring and coaching. I take it very seriously. I take on the Moniques of the world very seriously to mentor and coach, because I believe that I have some very invaluable experiences that will help people to survive in whatever environment they're in, and to help them understand the games of life that we as women of color must be knowledgeable of to survive the wickedness of, I'm going to say, the workplace and our communities.
All right. Amen. Dr. Rose.
Yeah. Can I
Go
can I
ahead.
add one little thing?
Mhm.
So it's a small club. The
Yes, it
people
is.
with a doctor is a small club. And so there are those gatekeepers, those gate blockers. And the system inherently is built to keep you out as you cross the threshold of, okay, I'm proposing my topic, I'm doing my comps, so there's so many opportunities to weed people out.
That's right.
So it's not a system that's set up for everyone to reach the mountaintop. And being very intentional about cultivating that community of people that, as Dr. Rose said, they can assist you, they can fertilize you. I mean, when you create your community,
or destroy you.
yeah. But what I'm saying is that to be intentional about who you choose for your committee. So
That's
always
right.
have someone on your committee, at least one person that just loves you. Period.
That's right. That's right.
I had my Dr. Linda James Myers. She loved me when I was doing my
Awesome
dissertation.
person. Yeah.
I was so depressed and I couldn't hardly go on. That woman drove to Youngstown, rocked my babies, and said, "Girl, you're gonna
do it. You're gonna do it."
I love it.
She hooded me. She
Wow.
hooded me.
That's awesome.
Monique, I say to you, build your village of love. Make
That's
sure
right.
there's at least one anchor of love on your committee. And
Yes.
we're here for you. We're here for it.
Amen.
Amen.
Thank you.
Amen.
See, now y'all see. So when this is over, I'm definitely going for the doctorate because I got commitment on my team.
Amen. Hey,
All
Mickey,
right.
Mickey, were you going to say something?
Mike, what did you say?
No,
Mike?
that wasn't me.
Oh,
Oh,
That was
okay.
Dr. Rose speaking.
No, I was saying, were you going to say something before Dr. Kelly says something? So.
oh, we were getting ready to go into the phase of telling your story. Whether you want to tackle all three or just one, race, gender, or class. But if you, your encounter with the situation, what happened, how it was resolved, if it was resolved, and just the life lesson that you took away from it. And I'm not going to pick on anybody. So anybody who wants to chime in first, go right ahead. The floor is yours.
Well, I'm going to share a situation that I had. It was a very painful situation, but a very growth producing situation. It was back in the early 90s. It's early 90s, and I was applying for a assistant directorship or a deputy position in my company. And during this particular time, I was the only African-American manager at that building. I was the go-to person. So if there was a problem, they always wanted to assign it to Rose. If there was a staff issue, assign it to Rose. If there was a community event and they needed some Black representation, assign it to Rose. I was my director's go-to person on finance. I could do the Excel sheets. I was very proficient in a lot of things. And so when the directorship opportunity came about, now this was not my first time applying for a higher position. And I was already in management, but at that point I might have been 20 years into my career with the master's level and with a license. So in this position, the position came up and a decision was made that it would come down between me and this Caucasian young man. And he was 22, 23 at the time. I'm in my 40s. And the director selected him because they were friends. And she was his mentor. And he was very, very inexperienced by virtue of 20 some years less than me. And at one point, the director said to me, she said, well, so-and-so doesn't know how to do such and such. Are you willing to mentor him and train him to do such and such, do all the books? And I was just so offended by that. And you know what I said to that person? I said, no, I'm not willing to train him. I'm not willing to do anything with him. That's your job. You selected him. That's your job. And soon after, people started complaining about him because he couldn't make decisions without his counterpart, without the person that selected him. And in the job that I was in, which is child welfare protection, you need to be able to make decisions very quickly and sound decisions and staying by your decisions. And you have to be a strong leader, and this person was not. So this person lasted all of 9 months and went on to another agency. But I soon left that position to take a lateral job. And I never, ever thought that I would take a lateral position to go work in another division. But it was that job that I took that prepared me to become a bureau chief at the state of Ohio just a couple years later. And so it turned into a blessing. And the lessons learned, number one, you don't want this, it's your loss.
All right.
And second of all, I'm not going to cry over it. I cried many a days being rejected for job opportunities. And I had to learn their loss. Their loss. And I don't have to prove anything to anyone. And no longer am I going to play that game of, oh, I have XYZ experience. My dossier and my CV is much more impressive than theirs. No, because in the realities of life, particularly in the workplace, it's not about your credentials. It's often who you know and who do you have favor with. Okay? And I had to learn that the hard way. I'm thinking it was all about skills, knowledge, and abilities, the KSAs. The hardest part, and I think this is it for us as people of color, is that we think it's the KSAs that are going to take us to the next level, but that's not it. It's all about relationships, and it's about who you know. But this same director, and I talk about this thing so passionately because I never will forget it. This particular person said to me, and please forgive anything that doesn't come out politically correct, but I'm just going to say it as it came to me. This boss that I had said, in order for you to get ahead in this agency, is that you have to kiss up, hang out with us, and socialize with us in order to get ahead, because we really don't know who you are. Now, here I've been in there for 20 years. You don't know me, really? You know who I am. But if the qualifications requires one to, quote, kiss up, and I'm going to say the word they said to me, kiss ass, and hang with them, that I chose to say, I'm not going to play that game.
Right.
Okay. If it's going to require me to sacrifice who I am as a person in order to fit into their circle, then I just wasn't willing to go there. And so it's a lonely walk. The higher you go, it gets lonely at the top. But I just chose that if I'm going to have to play that game in order to get in this circle, then there were some things that I chose not to do. I never have been a kiss up person. I never have been the kind of person that's going to go out smoking and drinking and carousing with people after 5 o'clock, because that's where I draw the line. Okay. You're my work family, but after 5, I don't have to partake with you if I choose not to. So lots of isms along that journey, a lot of pain in that journey, but I had to grow up through it and not take it personal. And it was that journey that just helped me to continue to grow and grow and grow. And the Lord just opened up doors and doors and doors of opportunity as I left. I left that particular system after nearly 26 years of civil service experience to go on to another governmental agency. And when I left, I said to the Lord, I said, Lord, I'm leaving the comfort of this protective civil service, and I'm going to another appointment at will position. I said, if you open up that door, then I'm sure you're going to protect me to the point in which I'll be able to retire. And he did just that. He protected me. And so I was able to survive it. But I think the keys of survival was knowing how to play the game and knowing who I am, knowing myself and protecting myself and staying prayed up and girded up and trusting God to carry me through, because it was a very turbulent journey during that time. So thank you for allowing me to share.
Thank you for sharing those words of wisdom, and I'm glad we're capturing this. Who would like to go next?
Pardon me. I will tackle race.
Okay.
Yeah, race discrimination. And what, Monique, you and I, we just recently discussed this. Going back to when I was at Kent, trying to pursue my doctoral degree, the cultural foundations of education from a historical and sociological perspective. And, you know, I was a TA, research assistant, whatever. And my professor, who was also the chair, you know, of my committee, she was going to be going out of town. Mind you, I am her research assistant. I know what you're working on. I know what the subject is, you know, and the subject was, if you all will perhaps recall the book, Why Do All the Black Kids Sit on One Side of the Cafeteria? Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've lived that. But anyway, so we were going to be discussing that book and just that whole phenomena in the class, and you know what it's like to be Black and either in high school, grade school, wherever, in an educational setting. And also my master's degree is in Black studies. So I'm sorry, I knew I would, this is my area, okay. However, she asked another student to lead the class. The student didn't look like me or any of you. Yes, she was. Yeah, she was not kissed by the sun, but she's a good person. Okay, but her husband is Black. Now, my professor, yeah, she's not melanated either, but her husband is Black. So you're gonna sit up, but yes, okay. So you're gonna have this woman who knows nothing about being Black in academics. She has no clue from where she comes from what it's going to be like for her Black kids, because they were kissed by the sun, what they're going to face. And I'm like, what is her frame of reference? The text? Okay, these students need some real world experience.
That's right.
You know, in the College of Education, it's all about this theory, this method.
That's right.
Okay, please let these young, bright-eyed students know what it's going to be like when they're teaching in a predominantly Black community, a community that has economic challenges. Okay, the marginalized. And here she comes, little Miss Pataskala. She is going to have culture shock. She won't have a clue. I mean, it blew my mind. Okay, and again, it goes back to, my degrees. So I'm on the beginning of my journey for a PhD, and the fellow student, you know, she's in the preparing her comps portion of it. I'm like, okay, is that what it is?
Mm-hmm.
It burns me up, just like having a white person teach Black studies or a man teaching women's studies. You don't have a clue.
Apples and oranges.
Yes, you have gall and audacity because you read a book. Yeah. I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and yes. It's incredible. And not only that, I remember when I was in seminary, okay, there are certain places you expect to see racism and foolishness. Now, when you are going to seminary and the mission statement, the goals and the purpose of the institution is to spread the love of Christ and all this wonderful stuff. But when I sit down for my interview, you're going to say to me, well, you know, you're going to be the first Black person in this program.
Oh
What do you
my.
think about that? Yeah. Yeah.
And how are you going to deal with it, right?
Well, welcome to Black Life in America.
Black life in America.
We visit that location often.
Yeah, being the only one is a bit of the norm.
Yes.
Yeah.
You're the only chip in the cookie.
That's
And
right.
it can be such a lonely position. I mean, now, Mike, were you finished or did you have some more?
Oh,
I didn't want to cut you.
I'm good.
Dr. Rose.
I was going to say, it just kind of stirs up some stuff.
It does. It does. So I'll tell you just a little bit about my life when I first started my doctoral program. Well, it was just the most horrific experience, and I'm moving on. I'm moving on through the painful process, and I get to the point where I'm actually dissertating, which I thought, oh well, Jesus, then bless me.
Yeah.
I'm writing a dissertation now. So here's my draft, master, and then the master threw that dissertation right back in my chest, like boom, like literally threw it in my chest, and said, not everybody is meant to get a PhD from the Ohio State University, and dismissed me. And then went on to borrow some of my research without my permission and publish it.
Oh my.
So just the disrespect, the disdain. So then I get the PhD, and I'm like probably depressed through the whole process because it is not a relational process. Not at Ohio State, it wasn't. It was an isolation process. It was a process where, you know, you're using other people's work to validate what you're doing, but your voice doesn't matter. And we are a relational, communicative people by nature. I'll just say that. And finishing up the doctorate, good. Get my job as a tenure track professor. My chair, after about a year or so, he said, I'm not going to recommend that your contract gets renewed. And I was like, okay, and why? Well, because I really need somebody that's methodical on my team. You are far too relational and creative. I said, excuse me? Oh yeah, you're far too relational, creative, and I'm relational and creative, so we don't need two of us. So I'm going to recommend that you leave the university. And then he would go on to harass me, coming into my office saying, aren't you upset that they haven't told you whether they're going to fire you or not? I told them I didn't want you on my team.
Oh my gosh.
And I wanted to just leave. I wanted to just leave. And my Bible study teacher said, you don't move until God moves you.
Yeah.
This will be resolved in the way that the Lord wants it to be resolved.
Yes.
But it was such a painful, grueling process to be at a university where these very Christian people would sit around the table and say, well, why can't we get any Black professors here? Let me see, looking around the table. Well, we got one. No, what are you? Puerto Rican? What are you? And I said, I dropped my pencil and I said, see, that's exactly why you can't recruit and retain people of color, because of that level of ignorance and disconnect. And then not one of my white colleagues said a word about the level of disrespect towards me. So there was like a crumbling inside of me. There was like a decompensation inside of me because I was so tired of fighting. And I remember inviting my daughter, my oldest daughter, to one of our faculty meetings because I just wanted her to witness what I was living through. And on that particular day, they were in rare form saying that in order to increase our enrollment and be able to get some people of color in here, we're going to lower the standards of the university. We're going to lower the test scores. We're going to take out the essay. I was like, hello? So you think that people of color, Black people, can't
matriculate? Yeah.
Can't matriculate? I said, I have a doctorate. Do you see me sitting here? And I am not an anomaly. We are a wise, strong people that survived the Middle Passage. Don't make me. I said, there is a lawsuit that's brewing right here, right now. There is a lawsuit. So I believe you need to reel that back. It hasn't been an easy journey. It hasn't been an easy journey. And I personally, I'm still in the process of healing from that journey, accepting my freedom right now to do and say what I please and on my own conditions.
On your terms.
On my terms. Yeah, because I've always been in institutions where they're like, oh no, don't say that. No, don't do that. Oh, okay, master, I can't do that. Okay, well, screw you. I'm doing it anyway. And not caring about the consequences, because ultimately I have a God that's ordering my steps, and that is my sustainer.
Well,
So you, and I used to call this particular chair broccoli. So you, broccoli, you don't run my show. You don't begin it. You don't end it. Yeah, because I have a God, and in this very Christian institution, allow yourself to remember that you're not the God of me.
My.
Just to
Preach.
share,
My.
girl.
Woo.
Mm,
Oh my.
mm,
Oh Lord.
And Monique, when you're hearing stories like this, it's just the tip of the iceberg. You know, we just gave just one example, but as I'm hearing from my sisters, I feel your pain.
mhm.
I've experienced some of that pain. I remember one institution that I applied with, Dr. K, that they said, well, um, and I was recommended by one of the professors of the university right here in Columbus at the da 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 da. Yeah, got me?
I got you.
Okay. And so I was told that year, you know, your application was fine, but we have our internationals coming in and they have first dibs because internationals bring cash.
Mhm.
It's almost like a cash and carry system.
Yeah.
And so the internationals have first dib and we only have so many slots. So you can come back and apply next year, or it may take an additional 2 years. And I'm thinking, I'm 50 some years old. I'm getting ready to retire. You don't want this? There's another university. And so that's where I landed. But I was offended by that because I had been affiliated with that institution for many, 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 many years. As adjunct faculty, you know, and as, you know, field mentor and field instructor. And then to be denied the opportunity to get a doctorate there was just very offensive. But that's our reality. And so, Monique, you're hearing these painful experiences, and it kind of stirs up something in me. And I will also say this, that when you're experiencing the isms of the realities that we have, some people will say, oh, I would get an attorney and I would sue them. Or I'll just file a discrimination charge against them. Or I'll take it to the Civil Rights Commission. Well, let me tell you about that. Be prepared to pay some money and be prepared to litigate your own case. And be prepared to have witnesses not willing to stand and say what really is. Because when you're taking on claims of discrimination, you have to have a witness. It's not about how you feel. And when I took on the system to claim discrimination, I had other African-American men and women who knew and who were victims of the isms. And when it came time to litigate, those so-called witnesses would not stand. One person says, well, it looks like discrimination, but I just think it's politics. Okay. I'm here to say this to anyone listening, is that the isms that we face in America is very, very painful. It's hard to talk about, and to be invited to talk about, I had some hesitation because I said to Monique, I don't know how transparent I can be because this is a very painful process. And I know in public service, we're trained to just suck it up. And we're also trained to keep it mum, always be politically correct, don't step on nobody's toes, and offend no one. But I tell you, the older I get, and I'm in my 60s now, I don't play by that game no more. If it's wrong, it's wrong. Gotta call it as it is. If it call a spade, if you're wrong, you're wrong. But yet, I also understand that there's a double standard. And as we deal with isms, it's going to be very difficult to deal with those double standards, because in order to survive these systems, you have to know that there is a game. There are rules of the game. How you survive the game is very, very, very important. And fight or flight is really not the answer. Is how do you stand? And as Dr. Kelly said, we have to rise above. We have to be strong. We have to be strong in our faith. We have to have a circle of supporters that's willing to listen and guide us and coach us through the process and to say, girl, you can make this, okay? Or be careful. I mean, I recall a conversation real recent with one of my girlfriends. She was going for a high level position. She had 3 interviews, and this was a high senior level position. And she has her doctorate in public health. And I said to her, when you go in that interview, I hate to say what I'm about to say, but you got to dummy it down.
Oh.
You can't be too smart because they're very offended. I said, don't ask them questions that you know is going to stomp them. Play dumb if you have to, okay? But don't show how brilliant you are. Does that make sense, ladies? Am I telling the truth?
Yeah, that's actually in the book, The Rules of Power.
There you go.
Yeah. Yeah, don't show that you are more intelligent than the master, even though you are.
Wow.
That's a strategy for attaining power. Which I don't play that well at all.
And that's the hard part of it because you know it is a game, right? but it's about surviving. It's about surviving. But we have to know that is a game.
Yeah.
And sometimes we have to placate that. I'm beyond that point because, like I said, I did retire in 2009. I'm back in government, so I can, walk again if I want to at any given point in time. So I have a different approach in how I deal with things. I'm just here to serve. I'm just here to serve. I'm not looking for no friends. I'm not looking to be hanging out with nobody after hours, going drinking with nobody. That's not my focus. My focus is here to serve the public and then go home.
I mean, I'll say that conceding our own authenticity and playing that game is like a slow death.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Because when we are not living our own soul level truth, we are shriveling, we are dying, we are giving away our life force energy. Yeah, because we're here to be ourselves.
Yes.
And when systems ask us to pretend to be someone else to fit into those small crevices of life, that's when it's time to run, because that's not survival. It's not even living.
Mm-hmm. I'm glad you said that, Kelly.
Yeah.
I'm glad you said that. That is because I could apply that to my last position in Columbus, and there was a white colleague. He had his own team to manage. I had my team to manage, but he constantly stayed in my staff members' cubicles. This one particular day, he told my staff member, I want you to go to this meeting with me. This other manager never had a conversation with me. And when I found out about it, I said, why didn't you come to me to let me know what your intentions were, what you wanted to do? I said, because if this young man had gone to that meeting and something happened to him, I can't go to HR and say, I thought he was at his cubicle. What does that sound like? As I would sound irresponsible. I'm like, don't approach my people. And if they're scared and they're coming in, well, he asked me to do this and I didn't want to say no. Like, you say no. You tell them to go back to your supervisor. And this guy and I, we kept having this back and forth, and he cussed me out. There were 2 other managers in the room, and they both were white. Nobody checked him. One person stood up and said, keep it down, guys, keep it down. And I didn't cuss him out, but my regret was I felt like I was watching. I told my supervisor, that I didn't want to bring, I didn't want to go to HR because her unit already had a lot of issues. And I said, I didn't do it because I didn't want any more issues for you. I said, but if this man speaks to you in that tone again, I said, no Black man in my life has ever cussed me out. And they haven't. My father, my stepfather, my uncles, no tones, none of that. That's not how I was raised. So this white man, I don't know nothing about you. You're not going to talk to me like that. And I told her if he did it again, I was going to bypass her office, and I didn't care what they did, but I was going to raise some sand in human resources. My regret is that I didn't go raise sand. And I think I was fearful because we had a whole new administration. Dr. Acton had just started. It was around that time. We had a whole new administration, and my biggest regret was not standing up for myself. So, and that's been a teachable moment for me because I regret that.
Yes. I'm sorry to hear that it was an African American that chose to cuss you out on
No,
the job.
no. A white male.
A white man. Okay. But I'm sorry to hear that you did not take it further to check that behavior. Because now he may feel that he has permission to do it again to someone else, even though you're no longer there.
Yep. That was my biggest regret. Yep. But
yeah, I confronted someone on that first job I was telling you guys about because they had done something to, quote, set me up. And it was clear that their team had made a mistake that impacted statistics on my team. And the person said, end quote, there will be a cold day in hell before I apologize to Rose Handon about my team.
Oh, wow.
And then when I took it further up the chain, they wanted to write me up for not getting along with the peer.
Wow.
So, I mean, I could go on and on and on, but I learned something about that. One, I didn't back down. I was very firm what I was feeling about that situation. And years later, that person left the agency in disgrace for sexual assault and discrimination in his own work team. So, he got his. And to the boss that had done me wrong, she also left out on disgrace. Yeah. Okay, because they do show themselves sooner or later. But I'm the victor because I kept growing and I kept going on and on and on. And I just believe that God truly just blessed me in the process. So,
well, Dr. Rose, I am, because I know the time is winding up and we got started late, so people had to drop off. But would you go ahead and give a closing comments, final thoughts, and then we will close out. It's all on you, baby girl.
Oh, my girls did have to leave, and what an honor to be a part of a very auspicious panel tonight. And thank you for the invitation to share the rich nuggets that we all have had and have all experienced. We have to be strong in our faith in order to deal with the painful nature of life. I watched the funeral of our late Congressman John Lewis today, and there were some parts in which I was in tears because it just reminded me of my father and my mother, the struggles that they've experienced in the civil rights movement. I would say always know who you are and whose you are in society, because we're all here for a purpose. We all have a divine destiny, and what you're leading and preparing for may be different from my experience, but God is preparing you for greatness.